Hello and welcome to the 21st Discworld novel spoilerific rereading. So Jingo. Helmet again, so you know that it is a Watchmen novel, and goodness gracious, I had kind of forgotten just how, I won't say dense the story is. I did remember that there are some, honestly my absolute favorite scene with the patrician is in this book. Just finally reaching that point, I was like, but that's like very far along in the book. So what is this story about? Well, the stupidity of war, basically. So in the beginning of this story, a sunken island rises to the surface again. And of course it's in the center of the Circle Sea, right smack dab in the middle distance between ankh-morpork, because we cannot have a Discworld novel without ankh-morpork, and Klutz, which is the other superpower that historically has been like the counterpoint or the opponent to ankh-morpork. I'm not going to go into details here, but there are very clear cultural stereotypes that Sir Terry Pratchett is drawing upon to basically mock the racism. Now there are characters here such as Sergeant Colin, who is an otherwise nice character, like, as nice as he can be, but he is very obviously racist, particularly towards Klutzians, and thankfully that is something that Commander Wimes does not tolerate. There are so many things in this. I'm just. We get the sunken island of Lesh that suddenly just pops up, and the ongoing side story of the two fishermen, the ankh-morpork fisherman and his son, and the Klutzian fisherman and his son, because they are the first people to find this island. They are the ones who are staying on the island, and they are the last ones to leave. It's just. And of course, because politics, the ruling prince of Klutz, I wrote it down, Prince Katram, sends his younger brother, Prince Kufura. So he sends his younger brother as a diplomat, an emissary of, peace is politics. So you know where this is going, because then we get a short introduction to a side character named Ossie Brunt, and he very clearly is. I mean, he's hiding from his landlady the fact that he has a bow in his room. Yeah, you know where this is going. This is a political thriller. It's a murder mystery. It's such a good. And the Trousers of Time. Forgot that part. And the Trousers of Time feature the disorganizer that Wimes very much does not like. And also we get to meet Leonardo of Quirm here. Now he's very clearly a. Well, first off, he is everything that Burkle Studley Johnson or Bloody Stupid Johnson wishes that he was. But Leonardo of Quirm, he is very much Leonardo da Vinci. Just dialed up to quite a bit more. He is an accidental genius. He will just draw a perfect circle without noticing. He will. Every single thing that you learned about Leonardo da Vinci, that is Leonardo of Quirm brought up. Yeah. And again, he is one of my favorite characters, because not only is he a genius and he managed to make so many things, but he is also so naive. He's so innocent. He is such a pure of heart character. He will actually create these horrifying machines of war, but he doesn't see them as things to take over the world or cause direct harm more than is necessary, because he really is. He's a sweet character, and the thought of things And basically the outside world, it just horrifies him. The outside world, yeah, because he's technically a prisoner of the patrician, but he's a prisoner of choice. Like, it's a mutual beneficiary, which is not really something that you would think was possible, but it is. It is. Also, he designs a submarine, and he sucks at naming things. So, what did he call it? A device for going under the waves. Inhabitants on Discworld are extremely horrible at naming things. So we have this prince coming to ankh-morpork, and there is an assassination attempt during this progression that is headed by the Unseen University, because it's, it started out as a graduation event, and then things just grew from there, and now it's this high society thing. The wizards, they give Prince Kufura, they give Prince Kufura an honorary degree, Doctorum Adamus cum flabellum dulci, a degree in Sweet Fanny Adams, which I believe is also a dig at universities in general, because Pratchett was very, very fond of making these kind of digs. Right, so there is an assassination attempt, and the prince does get shot with an arrow, but the thing is, it cannot be as simple as you would like it to be, because Ozzy is a terrible shot. It turns out that there are actually two snipers. Ozzy, who was there to take the fall, quite literally, and then another sniper whose name was Snowy Slopes, was the actual sniper. Now I say was because he also turns out dead. Very dead. Like, his head was cut off at home. And then the Classian embassy where the prince is recovering, catches fire. Mysteriously catches fire. And because of how things are turning out, how things are escalating, there are, you know how it is in ankh-morpork, we have the patrician, and then you have everyone else who does not like the patrician, but he's like the lesser of every other evil. But there's always someone who really, really fancies that they are perfectly capable of running things in place of the patrician. Yeah, so Lord Rust, which is one of these annoying aristocrats who floats on top when things start sizzling, he declares martial law because status and all that. And because of who the patrician is, he's like, sure, why not? And then the patrician goes on an adventure with Leonard of Quirm, Colin, and Nobby. And he actually sends Leonardo off to kidnap Sergeant Colin and Nobby Nobs, because he wants those two, because they fit perfectly into his plans. And, because Lord Rust is Lord Rust, and he's an aristocrat, he removes Vimes from authority. He's like, you're no longer commander of the Watts, and the Watts is like, well, off with you then. So, we have the patrician Leonardo of Quirm, Sergeant Colin, and Nobby Nobs in a submarine, traveling around the Circle Sea, basically, exploring Lesp, and then going off to Klats with a package. And I, for the longest time, thought that package was a bomb. I'm like, damn. Then we get Sergeant Angua, who is the werewolf. She actually gets trapped on a Classian ship going to Klats because things. And then we have the basically the entire Watts, who are now, technically speaking, a paramilitary group. I cannot remember what the word is, because Commander Vimes is a knight, meaning that he has the legal obligation to basically make an army in times of war. So he's doing things by the rule book. So the Watch is basically now an army. Is it infantry? So they commandeer a fishing vessel and are on their way to Klats as well. Am I forgetting anyone? Oh, and this is the point where the Trousers of Time is introduced. So we now, at this point in time, when Vimes makes a choice to leave ankh-morpork, we enter this split. Well, we do not enter a split timeline, but we are told that there is a split timeline that branches here. And through the Disorganizer, we hear snippets of events as they would have transpired if Vimes had remained in ankh-morpork. The war would have gone very, very differently. And that's a very chilling, very interesting thing to, narrative standpoint, storytelling thing, to use that. That was very, very interesting. And also, when they are in the middle of the sea, there's a magical storm, and I'm not sure if that's a regular thing. Like, it does happen, but not to this extent. So there's a very strong indication that there's someone fueling the storm, and it's not ankh-morpork. Now the thing is, though, on the Klatchian ship, where the prince is, and Anqua, there is a very, very fantastic character called 71 Hour Ahmed. Now I haven't mentioned him before because I am Chaos, but he has been operating as the prince's bodyguard. He is literally keeping him alive, and he is very clearly doing things that are a little sus as well. Like, he sabotages the ship that he is on to slow it down, because he knows that Vimes is on the ship and he wants them to catch up with him. He knows who Angua is, and yes, he does put that silver collar on her, but he doesn't harm her. Well, more than the silver does. And that entire thing. Meanwhile, the quartet, the four in the submarine, they literally go under Lesb. The entire thing with Lesb is so interesting, just the sciences behind it, because Lesb is a floating island, probably made out of pumice, which is this volcanic. No, it's a material that, is formed by volcanoes, and a lot of us know pumice as the very fantastic natural resource to use on calluses, particularly on our ankles, feetsies. And there's also a very strong smell of sulfur. So, I mean, that kind of does explain Lesb in a way. Due to the storm, they essentially strand on the Klatchian coast. And while this is going on, because let's not forget, there's a war brewing. Lord Rust is not a military tactician. He is not a military genius. He is doing everything the worst possible way. He sounds very British. I would trust a British author to write a British aristocrat into, like, the Discworld novels. That's like, yes. The entire thing with Lord Rust, you just want to grab the man and shake him. It's like, you cannot be this dumb, but he is, and that's kind of the point. So he is wanting to attack Klats at the worst tactical advantage, because he thinks that makes him a tactical genius, because no one would think that anyone but an idiot would attack the best defended city. Therefore, the city wouldn't be that kind of need to read the book to understand just how dumb Lord Rust is because he apparently doesn't realize that the rest of the world also has brain cells, and probably more than he does. Definitely more than he does. And also because when they strand the Watts, when they get stranded on the coastline, they are technically kidnapped by the Durek, who are a Classian tribe, who are the most feared Classian tribe because they attack everyone at any time, basically. Even their chickens attack, and their sheep and their goats and their camels. It sounds like a terrifying thing if ever you were to fight a Durek. Because as it turns out, 71 Hour Ahmed is a Durek. And of course, because we also have Carrot, who just adapts to anything at all. There is a bit of a Lawrence of Arabia flair with him that's going on. It's not nearly as dramatic as Lawrence of Arabia, not nearly as much, but there is a little bit of a flair, and I wrote it down in my notes because I'm like, and while that is going on, we have the quartet, who are now in Alkali, I believe it is. Yeah, they're in Alkali. And so the patrician sends off Colin and Nobs to go and find disguises. And that entire plotline is fantastic because... well, the first attempt didn't go so well, not at all. And the second attempt, I mean, it leaves Colin dressed as a clown, which essentially he is. The patrician is a juggler, and Nobby is dressed as a woman. His entire thing, while he's cross-dressed as a Classian woman, is just like, Nobby has a lot of fun. He just turned boom, like he got even more fun. He got even more entertaining because straight away, as soon as he puts on a dress, he's like, he's a woman. The joke is, of course, that most homely looking men inexplicably, and for some very strange narrative reason, as soon as they put on a woman's clothing, another man will be inexplicably attracted and in love with them, completely convinced that that man is a woman. And that's kind of the joke, that's the narrative joke. But with Nobby, because of how he looks, most people, the joke very quickly becomes kind of the opposite. People are like, they don't doubt that he's a woman, they're just like, she's a very not attractive woman. And Nobby, that entire plotline, I'm like, if Nobby had been a woman, he would have been like his grandmother. And I kind of feel like now I need to take a little step back and say that this has nothing to do with people being trans. Okay? Just a little side note. This has nothing with trans people. We know that Discworld has a lot of different people. This is purely a dig at a narrative convention that was very common. I'm kind of talking about this as nearly as common now because people are like, it's not really funny though, because we heard the joke so many times. But it's this narrative convention of a homely looking man who is very much a man, for some plot contrivances, having to dress as a woman. And very clearly is still a man. He acts as a man. He feels like a man. He just puts on feminine clothing. And inexplicably, another man is convinced that this is the single most attractive woman that he has ever seen and falls in love. That's the plot. That's the trope that is being turned on its head, and then Nobby basically kicks it. Because he gets very tired of that joke very quickly. He's like, you knock that off right now. And I'm like, oh, there's a reason why I adore you. There is a reason why I adore you. So, with that out of the way, let's continue. Now, I did mention that the Lord Veterinary, he takes on the role of a juggler. He is a natural entertainer. Like, absolutely, he just jumps into the role. He manages to juggle. And I say manages to juggle because I've tried juggling. It is hard. It is... But then again, I'm not Lord Ordinary. I have not had to rule over ankh-morpork. Like he says at some point, when you've dealt with ankh-morpork, a bunch of balls, a little bit of juggling is piece of cake. Like he's juggling melons, then he's juggling knives and melons, then he's juggling knives, and it's just like very interesting. Like he does it really, really well. At one point, he manages to get a donkey down a tower. I say a tower is actually a minaret. That is actually a good plot thing because not only does it bring further the fact that Lord Veterinary is able to do most of the things that people think is impossible, because he figures out the simplest way of doing the impossible. But this is, again, we are in Al-Khali, we are in Klat. And Klat's being basically fantasy Arabia. The fantasy, that part of the continent. So they have actually flying carpets. So when the guards go off to find a flying carpet to go save the donkey, Lord Veterinary manages to get it to get back down from the minaret. And when everyone is preoccupied with trying to find out how he did it, the three bugger off because Lord Veterinary steals the flying carpet. And also at this point, I'm not giving up with the Nobby thing because Nobby being a woman in Klatz, Klatz is very, very Arabian. It's very, the Middle Eastern type of flavor. So he's not allowed to drink beer with the other guys because they think that he's a woman. So he has to go entertain himself, which is how he ends up basically making friends with a lot of classier women who think, well, first off, they think that he is a lonely woman, so they invite him to come join them. And he has a natural flair of entertaining women, which is basically as soon as they do not know that he's a man, it's like the entire thing is so funny, but it's also so tragic because basically Nobby Nobs would be very much like Kira. He would be so like Nanny if he were a woman. But also there's a very sweet thing when they're on the magic carpet and Colin, basically calling it is spread out on it because he's terrified of heights. There's a really cute thing where basically Veterinary is like, this is the closest thing that I've had to a vacation. He doesn't say it out loud, but basically he's very relaxed because when he's around these two idiots, he doesn't really have to think. Like, he doesn't have to be plotting, 3 steps ahead. He's just being entertained. And then of course we go back to the desert with Vimes. The thing is, because we do have these two extremely different cultures, it turns out that Ahmed, 71-hour Ahmed, is a police officer. The entire thing leading up to that revelation, because Vimes has a brain, basically, and how that entire thing pans out. I was rereading and I was like, yeah. That's one of the things that I love about rereading Discworld is figuring things out again. Because there's a crime. There was a crime that was committed in ankh-morpork, and there was a crime committed by the older prince. Because of course it was the older brother who hired the assassins on his own younger brother because he wanted war. Because the thing is that back in Klatz, he has been working on uniting the entire country and has been having a demon of a time because of the different tribes. So usually the best option when you want to unite a large territory is to find a common enemy. So he basically decided to start a war with ankh-morpork in order to unite his country. And that is something that has happened throughout round the world's history again and again and again. So, you know, some people. So what does Worms do when we have these two armies in the Clatzian Desert? We have the prince and his army, we have Lord Rust and his army. What does Worms do? He arrests the whole lot of them. Worms arrests two armies. I knew there were so many things in this book that I just loved. And then veterinary arrives just in time, and the thing that I was convinced was a bomb the entire time. Well, technically speaking, it is kind of a bomb, just not the thing that goes poof in the desert like I thought it was. It is kind of a bomb because it's actually a notice of surrender, basically. So veterinary is like, so ankh-morpork is gonna surrender. We're gonna pay you this amount of money and this and that and the island on Lesb and all that. Because veterinary knows that the island of Lesb isn't gonna be there. Lesb is a floating island, which is something that the other characters do not seem to like clock in on. Lesb is gonna sink again. And veterinary knows that. And the reader knows that. So you're just like, well, how is he gonna pull this entire thing off? Because back in ankh-morpork, Lord Rust is fuming, and ankh-morpork is, technically speaking, still under military control. They're still under military law. And that entire thing, how veterinary just manages to turn things around by speaking the truth. There isn't an island of Lesb, because in the time while they were getting back to ankh-morpork, the island went down again. So there isn't an island for them to be disputing over. There's also a note on football replacing war, which is a very famous thing that has happened here in Round World. It's also a thing with singing competition, at least in Europe here in Round World. So and also the prince makes a runner because his people found out that he had planned to murder his own brother, and they're like, well, that's not on. So he makes a runner to the exact same small country as his former subordinate, 71-hour Ahmed. And the only person who realized that is Worms and the reader. So the younger brother is now in control of the country, and he's definitely a way more reasonable person than his brother. He's also not a warmonger. Colin and Nobby get an entirely new post, as suggested by the patrician, and it's just like their reward without patrician actually telling Worms what it was that they were doing with him. Well, this doesn't make Worms very happy, but he is made a duke. And he doesn't dare to refuse it because, like veterinary points out, Sybil would be very, very happy to have that title to politely lady it over to certain people who have been a little bit ladylike annoying. And then the last thing that I wrote in my notes is that Leonardo of Quirm, he sinks his submarine. Because he's seen the wider world now and he is not impressed. It's full of madmen, and it's just, he's like, no. And then he goes and locks himself off away in his tower again and starts to make something new. Yes. And then the story ends with the repeat of the promenade and Worms being the commander or the Duke of ankh-morpork. That means that he leads a procession, but then a thief makes a mistake at being a thief, and Worms gives chase. So he's just happy when he's chasing people. Well, chasing criminals. So yeah, that was Jingo, my rereading, my spoilerific, my all over the place. I don't know, what word was I gonna use? Jingo, the 21st Discworld novel. And I do have a little private story with it because I actually have 2 copies of this book. And that's because this is original. And this one, slightly nicer because it hasn't... I haven't really read this one. I used it to read. So you can see that there's a bit of a difference between them. And why is that? This is original copy that my brother gifted me. He's the one who got me into reading Discworld. This, however, is a copy that one of my teachers back in the days, more than 20 years ago, gifted me after I lent him another Discworld novel. Because I can't remember if it was Mort or Moving Pictures. I feel like it was one of the M titles that he wanted to read and wasn't able to get at the time. So I, of course, being a reader and very happy about finding yet another person who was interested in Discworld novels, lent him a book. So in gratitude, he bought me a book. So now I have 2 copies, and I'm very, very happy about it. Now, the next book that I will be rereading for this series is the 22nd book, The Last Continent. And we will be going back and meeting our friend Rainswind. Hopefully you had fun watching, hopefully you gained something from this. If anything, I would very, very strongly recommend that you read Discworld novels. Not in chronological order like I'm doing, but that's because I've already read them. I would really recommend that you either pick the Wizards or the Witches or the Night Watch, something like that, and do it that way, not chronologically. But I really hope that you had fun watching this. I hope you maybe gained some insight. Maybe you can tell me some of your most fun trivia regarding this book. I would very much love to hear something from you guys. And again, hope you find something interesting. Maybe some other video of mine on this channel. Who knows? But in any case, thank you for watching, and I will hopefully see you some other time. Okay? Until then, take care. Bless, bless.